Well, this morning, parts of Larimer County are still on guard against flooding after flash floods killed 2 people yesterday.
And there's a new delivery fee here in Colorado, charging you for every single delivery. We're reviewing what the new delivery charge means for local businesses.
Having enough trees can make a huge difference to bearing those hot summer days we've been having, but not everyone has that kind of protection as Denver warms up. But first, we're going to talk about the threat of floods in northwest Larimer County this morning. Flash flooding killed at least 2 people yesterday, a woman and girl in the Buckhorn area. Some roads you still can't drive on. Emergency crews have been working very fast to reach everyone in the area and don't believe anyone else is completely cut off.
Yeah, the area where that flooding happened is around where the Cameron Peak Fire burn score is, and 9 News reporter Luis De Leon is there with the latest.
Somewhere around 10 miles into the canyon right next to us here is where officials still have some roads blocked off, especially in the Crystal Mountain area after significant flooding. Officials told us just before 5 o'clock on Friday they started receiving calls of flash flooding in that area. There was significant flooding in the Crystal Mountain area. Officials say culverts were washed out, some private bridges washed out. A portion of one of the roads out there at around mile marker 25 was completely washed out as well. The river was several feet higher in places than where it normally is not that high. Resources from the Larimer County Sheriff's Office started going house to house to make sure people were okay. They did receive reports early on about a camp trailer that had washed away in the middle of the Buckhorn area. They were told that there was an adult female and a juvenile female in that trailer. They said those 2 did not make it, and they found them at around 7:30 p.m. They also found one home destroyed. That was over on Granite Way. Everyone there is accounted for.
In situations like this, we see communities come together and they really lean on each other, and we certainly expect that to be the case this time. You know, it's just one of those things. You never know what Mother Nature's going to do.
At last check, there were crews on their way out to that area to start clearing the roads and hopefully get them back open. Back to you.
All right, Luis, thank you so much. Well, if you live in part of Larimer County with the flash flood risk, or you visit for hiking, rafting, or camping, the county is asking that you consider signing up for these flash flood alerts. People who are signed up for the county's opt-in alert system will get messages when it's bad enough they need to get to higher ground. If you text flood 2022, the 888-777, you'll get texts every time that there is a chance for some flash flooding.
I was just looking at that map this morning, and there are still some areas that are under that flood threat this morning, and it rained so quickly yesterday, and I think the worry is, could that happen again today, Keely?
Well, we are going to see a little bit of thunderstorm activity through the area. The threat, however, is limited today, especially in Larimer, Grand, Jackson counties, where we have a limited threat of flash flooding. And this threat for some of the more severe thunderstorms out to the east, Palmer Divide south for us today. But again, the threat is still there. It is always important to be aware, get those alerts, know what's going on out there so that we, obviously can be prepared for what could happen with these thunderstorms that still are forecast to move through today. So here's a look at your forecast for today. This is for the Denver metro area. We are looking at a bit cooler of a day than yesterday. We topped out at 96 yesterday. We'll make it up to about 91, 92 degrees, mostly sunny skies. We do have a few afternoon thunderstorms rumbling through. Here's a look at your hour-by-hour forecast for today. So we do have some clouds out there this morning. Those will clear as we head into the middle part of the day. Then we'll start to see some increase in clouds as well, and the chance for some thunderstorm activity after about noon today, I would say. We'll likely get up again to the low 90s, 91, 92, but cooling off quickly. It'll be a quick spike, and then we'll start to cool off into the mid 80s as we head into the evening hours. Overnight, mostly clear. The storms move out. Again, those storms move out fairly rapidly. We'll drop down to about 64 for an overnight low. We have likely a record high temperature day in our 7-day forecast. We'll let you know when that happens coming up in just a bit.
All right, thanks so much for that, Keely. Well, right now, part of eastbound I-70 is closed. Washington Street is closed till 270 until Monday morning. There's, of course, a detour if you're headed that way. This is the second to last lane shift for drivers, which will then complete the Central 70 project.
This is really one of the last big things that we need to do. So traffic will switch onto eastbound I-70, and within the next couple of months, we're going to switch traffic on the westbound I-70 lanes into its final configuration as well. And then you can basically consider I-70 complete.
So eastbound I-70 will be reopening at 5 in the morning Monday. CDOT expecting the westbound lane closures will be happening sometime this fall.
Well, the older sister of one of the teenagers charged in a deadly arson is going to spend more than a decade in prison herself. Investigators looking into the fire discovered the woman's crimes all by accident. Last year, investigators connected Tanya Bowie's younger brother Kevin and 2 other teenagers to a fire at a home in Green Valley Ranch. 5 members of the Joel family sadly died. Court documents said investigators got a search warrant for Kevin's phone, which was registered to Tanya. Police say they found evidence tying the teenager to the fire and showing Tanya's involvement in gun and drug sales. She pleaded guilty to gun and drug charges back in February. Today, a federal court in Denver sentenced her to more than 10 years in prison.
A father charged with trying to kill his 5-year-old son pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity this week. Michael Ninomaya is facing multiple charges, including attempted murder, child abuse, after his son fell through ice in January along the Cherry Creek Trail. His son suffered head injuries and was taken to the hospital in critical condition. At the time, the boy's mother said that she never thought that Ninomaya would hurt their son. He is being sent to a behavioral facility for evaluation and is due back in court in September.
A judge says Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters is a flight risk with access to a private jet. However, yesterday the judge decided that Peters should not go back to jail for violating her bond by traveling out of state without permission. The Republican County Clerk went to Las Vegas this week for an election deniers conference while on bond for felony charges of tampering with voting equipment. Peters has hired profile defense attorney Harvey Steinberg, who told the judge it was his fault Peters was not informed of an order she could not travel because he's not computer literate. The judge says Peters is a flight risk with access to a private plane and financial resources, but he believes in second chances. A longtime criminal defense attorney says in her decades of experience, that's a chance that most of her clients don't get.
Many people who are too poor to hire private counsel are certainly too poor to have access to private jets, or even, Southwest Airlines don't receive the same kind of consideration when they ignore a judge's order.
Peters got caught out of state because she actually sent a letter to the Secretary of State's office demanding a recount in her Secretary of State primary. That letter was notarized in Nevada. Peters and Republican Senate candidate Ron Hanks had until today to pay for the recount. They did not.
So Peters got caught, like Jordan was explaining, is because the Colorado Secretary of State's office got caught because she sent that letter to the Colorado Secretary of State's office demanding that recount, and it was notarized in Nevada. Now, we wanted to get to a little more details about the recount itself. If a statewide race is closed, the state actually pays for that recount. If you lose but still want a recount, you actually have to pay for it. So Hanks and Peters faced a bill of $236,000, and that was due yesterday. That is more money than Peters raised in her race. She lost to Pam Anderson by more than 88,000 votes, and more money than Hanks raised in his losing effort against Joe O'Dea, where he fell 57,000 votes short.
It is 6:08 now on your Saturday morning, and the San Luis Valley is facing a backlog of cases and a shortage of lawyers, along with the loss of its top prosecutor.
Democratic District Attorney Alonzo Payne resigned this week, less than 2 years in office. He would have been facing a recall election, but then an investigation by the state found that Payne had ignored and mistreated crime victims. Our partners at the Denver Gazette report that the office now just has one full-time and one part-time attorney trying to manage the work meant for half a dozen lawyers. So district attorneys in Denver and Boulder, Adams, Broomfield, and Jefferson counties are all loaning prosecutors to help. The governor also appointed Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser to act as DA for the San Luis Valley while looking for a replacement.
Denver's program to send mental health professionals instead of police to certain calls could now become a nationwide model. Democratic Senator Michael Bennet introduced a bill this week that would pay for similar programs all across the country. Denver started the STAR program in summer of 2020. Since then, the team has responded to more than 4,600 calls. None of those calls required extra help from police. Researchers at Stanford found low-level crimes dropped by more than a third in neighborhoods initially covered by the STAR teams. Their analysis found there were fewer citations and people were less likely re-offended. If passed, the new bill in Congress would dedicate funding to create similar programs in other places. Well, he spent a night alone, lost in the mountains. Not exactly what 14-year-old Spencer Hallman had in mind for his first backpacking trip.
It was almost 24 hours later that rescue crews found him, brought him safely back to his family in Berthoud, and now the teen and his mom are sharing their story. Here's Jennifer Beckles.
A day after his rescue,
I'm just tired.
after a full night of sleep,
Yeah.
Spencer Hallman is still pretty exhausted from his unexpected night alone in the woods.
Yeah, absolutely.
With Mom Tammy's help, he shared his story.
That was just a backpacking trip.
It was a high adventure camp out. So they backpacked 6.2 miles in.
A group of young campers and their leaders from Spencer's church left Monday for Rewa Wilderness. Wednesday afternoon,
I was going to take a bath in the creek.
You just went to the creek to wash up and then to come right back. But then what happened while you were at the creek?
I took a wrong turn.
a wrong turn turned into one very long night.
Yeah, I slept for about an hour.
His church leader said that he tried to flag the helicopters down, that he used his knife and was trying to do reflection off of the sun for the helicopter, but it must have been too wooded.
I had trouble mixing Gatorade. I was just scared.
When something traumatic like this happens, we just turn to our faith and say, God has a plan. He's going to show us the way, and we go with it.
The bugs bit him up pretty good, and he was very tired and thirsty. But when rescuers found Spencer Thursday afternoon, he was okay. Even got a ride out of the mountains on horseback.
I was just happy to be leaving the mountains.
You feel a little numb at first, just kind of, I really didn't have a lot of emotion until I got the phone call that he was safe. And then it was like, okay, we're good.
After all that, Spencer is ready to rest. And Mom, she can exhale.
I feel blessed. We're just grateful for his safe return.
Gosh, I was holding my breath.
I'm about to say, that gave me a little bit of anxiety
Ooh.
listening to that story.
That's so terrifying. Spencer
Yeah.
says the campers had just learned some survival skills the day before he got lost. He remembered most of it, but then had a few hard lessons in the woods. That feels like an understatement.
Right, absolutely. Larimer County had teams in the air, on the ground, even a dog looking for Spencer. And of course, his church group was also part of that effort. But, he was a little bit smarter than even I would have been in that situation. That's terrifying. That's a big fear of mine, that you take a wrong turn.
Right.
You can't find your way up. But he said he was trying to use his knife to reflect light to the helicopters, everything like that.
And thank goodness they found him that quickly.
Well, we were just talking about all the events that were happening around that
Right?
time, too, in Larimer County, and some of the unfortunate stories that we cover, mountain lions, flooding, things like that. And I think as a parent, that's where my mind would have been, is freaking out that something could have happened like
or
that.
how long it would take to kind of pinpoint where he's at. So we are just so glad that he's
very
home
thankful.
safe and sound. Well, in Granby,